Let's spend several minutes softening. Settle your weight into this space just in front of the sitting bones. Your legs are soft, however you're choosing to sit. Shoulders are soft, your chest is released. You're not trying to lift it. I know that there are certain practice methods where they sit in this kind of strange way, trying to expose their heart. This is not a method that we endorse. Instead, soften your chest, soften your belly. Release the neck, crown of the head floats up. Oh, great. Yeah, sit in a way that is comfortable. That is the rule. Comfortable, and that enables circulation and softness. In fact, the main meditation posture that we tend to use is similar to this. There's a position where this becomes round and circulates here. The legs are round and open. This is soft and open. And everything resolves here and releases. And it becomes very comfortable with practice. And so we can sit this way, but of course, not everybody sits and relaxes in this position. Often people will sit and they close off the circulation to their legs, and so their legs go numb. They're holding their shoulders up, so there's a lot of pain up and through here. Their bodies are reorganizing themselves, and so everything is held and is still unable to release until things straighten up or open up. And so we want to sit in a way that is relieving and enables us to practice more easily rather than making the practice all about the seated posture. Corey is here. Welcome, Corey. Corey was in one of the classes from this morning as well. It's wonderful to see people practicing so much. Take the time to really let go. Be soft and gentle. Cultivating loving intent. As you exhale, your whole body softens. As you inhale, allow that stillness to deepen and expand. If you'd like, you can exhale gently through the mouth as a way to help some of that softening occur, inhaling through the nose. A bit more open with every breath. As we were mentioning yesterday, this deep softening of the body allows this quality to accumulate in the body, this kind of softness. And it's very much like taking a dry sponge. It's all hard and you can tap it against the, the table and it sounds like wood. You take that sponge and you dip it into the water and you take it out of the water. It doesn't do much. If I dip it in the water, take it back out, maybe it did something, but it didn't really allow that change to happen. But instead, what you do is you take that dried, desiccated sponge that some of us can feel in our own bodies, and we set it into this moistening, nourishing liquid. And slowly, just by resting there, not doing anything, you're not trying to pull the sponge apart, you're letting it settle in that space. The sponge begins to fill and open, and the shape changes on its own. How it functions changes all on its own. You just rest there. And that's what these practices are for, especially something like this simple seated release, soaking in softness and stillness and love, this compassionate intent, kindness that soaks into us as well. It really does change you. And then when you're ready, we're going to bring fresh warmth and chi to our hands. Again, if you're up where I am, or in the northern hemisphere of the world, I guess, there's a lot of cold, make sure that your hands are nice and toasty before touching yourself. I am going to assume that all of you know this sequence pretty well. So I'm going to take my headphones off and just put them over here, and I won't say anything, but please do follow along as best you can. And if you have questions, you know where to ask. Ah, Dale, you made it. Glad you're here. Dale is asking why it looks like I'm in some strange out of the way, did you say a fishing port? Oh, Chris used a great way to say it. You said, oh, my meditation caravan. Yes, so this is the Daoist temple that I'm in, and we have a little meditation home in this space, a quiet, solitary space to train and be quiet on the land. And so this is my little meditation corner here, not a lot of space, but enough to do these kinds of practices. And so we're in this space because the other more spacious area that I tend to practice in, that at the moment is it's being covered in snow. So so we're here instead. Have to keep the movement going. Softening open the shoulder. Gently opening. I'm going to continue focusing today a little bit on talking about shoulder position. And so, as a reminder, this whole area is the front of the movement of the shoulder. If I want my shoulder to open this way, for my shoulder to move this way, the way to do that is not to pull with the back, which is how 99.9% of the world moves, but instead to soften the front. Let the front open and the shoulder will open. So as you sit here, releasing this space, allow that opening movement to occur through the shoulder. Similarly, the base of the shoulder is all attached down here. This is where the shoulder allows movement in this direction. If it's tight here, it pulls it down and freezes the shoulder. So we soften this space, and we'll do more work on the ribs below later. And as this happens, if we wanted the shoulder to be able to move up, which of course sometimes we do want, instead of tightening here, we soften beneath, and all of this opens upward. And so as you release this space, you might want to notice that you're also releasing inhibition to movement, and the shoulder moves up and out. If you're able to release the back of your shoulder a little bit, depending on your flexibility level and the shape of your body, when the shoulder wants to come forward, we tend to pull with the front, but it's possible instead to simply release the back. So as you release the back, allow the shoulder to open forward and outward. Oops. And also working on the top, softening, relieving all the way around. Comfortable movements. If I wanted my shoulder to move downward, what a lot of people do is they grip and they pull down from underneath. Instead, release the top of the shoulder, and the shoulder falls down and out. So as this is relieved, notice that releasing movement outward, all the way around the shoulder. The shoulder is disinhibited, and it stops being sucked up against the ribs and releases out toward the fingertips. Oh. Recommendations. Yeah, I'm glad that you notice this shape, so that, again, depending on body shape and what's going on with tension here, as I reach across, the tendency is for the shoulder to move forward and up. And this is what most people do anytime they reach up or around. And when I do this, it tends to press into tissue that's here or into existing blockages. So the shoulder kind of goes this way. And part of what we're trying to do is to release the shoulder this way so that that shoulder blade slides down the back. And you'll notice that when my shoulder blade slides down the back, watch which direction my elbow and my hand goes. It goes around the circle that way. So if I come this way, and in this position I release my shoulder blade, I'm not pushing anything down, I'm just letting all of this go, then suddenly I'm able to reach this more easily. And again, saying that, I'm saying that without having breast tissue or without having shoulder impingement. And so it can be more difficult for other people with different body types. And so the difficult answer is, one, make sure that this movement is happening. It's disinhibiting long rather than pulling into itself, obstructing itself. And the other answer is just find the best way because everyone's body is so different. Releasing now the upper arm if you haven't started already. And remember that if you already know this set, feel free to move through it at your own pace. We're just here to support each other with practice. Yeah, I hope that helps, Corey. It's a really good question and a difficult one to answer unless we're there. There's that wonderful Chinese term, fang song. Fang song is this. It's release and relax, a kind of idea, but it kind of means this. Fang song. You let something go. It just falls. And so if I feng song my arm, it falls like this. The thing is that we're constantly walking around with everything sucked into our body. If I feng song my neck, my head releases upward. You can also feng song your mind, and you just let the mind settle. The breath, you let go of the breath, and the breath opens and settles. Feng song is a really important principle. And if I feng song the shoulder this way, it goes and lets go. The difficulty is all of the stuff that we put into our own way, which is, of course, how we tend to do everything as humans. And so as we move, you don't want to try to force things to let go. You don't want to try to do extra. Instead, the difficulty is, and the great wonder of all of this, is that we learn how to don't, as Sophie would say, to get out of our own way. And all of these wonderful skills that we see, like Master ZhiCheng demonstrate when he is flipping me upside down and doing things to me, they're all from him just letting go. It's this all power comes from release. All clarity comes from release. All emotional peace comes from this deep letting go. And so practicing it in something as simple as this is a really good way to practice it because it ends up being the same skill for our minds, for our emotions, for our breath, for our chi flow. It's all letting go. And if you can learn how to do it with your hand, or in this case, with your elbow, right there, then we can use that same skill elsewhere in our lives because the way we do anything is the way we do everything. Emphasizing this motion down toward the hands, the elbows sinking and lengthening away from the shoulder is another way to disinhibit the shoulder. Inside of the elbow. These can be those movements where it's mostly just the skin moving, helping to release tangles. If you had some rope that was tangled up and you're kind of loosening it without pulling it too hard and tightening the knots, you're just loosening those areas. All of these layered levels of tension and fascial constraint. Anna, welcome. You made it. On the other side. And I should mention, of course, that if you already have a grasp of the set and you ever join us late, it's fine to come in at any time, always. in any of my classes. And just feel free to start at the beginning, work your way down, move at your own pace. As I was saying earlier, we're just here to support each other in healing. You don't have to follow me. Large intestine 4, this line here. Since we've been speaking of the shoulders and how to release and disinhibit the shoulders, softening these points here, this is one long channel that moves up. By releasing them, this also helps to ease some of the tendency to hold the shoulder, this stagnation that flows up into the shoulder. In fact, even that point that we do up by the nose in the beginning of the set is part of this same channel. The strange wondrousness of the body. Again, as you release the front of the shoulder, this begins to disinhibit the shoulder and allow movement opening this way, as well as softening outward toward the elbow. By having that gentle awareness and intent, it gives a little bit more information to your body. It knows where to let go. Eventually, in standing or the martial arts, this quiet understanding of the direction of release allows a lot of strength and connectivity, integration of your body. You learn to release through the body rather than just around it. Again, as you soften the bottom of the shoulder, this allows the shoulders to be released up and out. Any work on the back of the shoulder that you can release, allowing the shoulder to be released forward and out. So your back and your chest are opening at the same time. Continuing to release the top of your shoulder. Of course, this allows your shoulder to soften downward and outward toward the elbow and the hand. And again, if this is difficult because of local constriction from tissue shaping, the way our bodies work, you can try releasing this way, simply settling your hands on top of your shoulder and then letting your elbow sink, and letting your fingers gently drag. The way that we were doing this raking motion over the neck, you can do that over the shoulder. Just try not to push too hard because you don't want the body to tense up. Whatever it is that works better for your body. Softening around the elbow is also wonderful for helping to relieve and release the shoulder, because in a way, this is the outer edge, the outer corner, my instructor says, of the shoulder. It's this movement that travels that way. To allow the elbows to hang and become heavy. And this allows the shoulder to have a direction to go. Too often people end up things with shoulder pain, neck pain, headaches, simply because they're pulling everything up instead of releasing it out. Oh, good. Yeah, every class I want to emphasize a slightly different part of the body, but also I want to make sure that I can address everyone's concerns as we go. These points here, again, this is all integrated here with this channel. And so as you release this, part of what you want to be aware of releasing is this whole line. Everything is releasing out toward the hand. You're never just relaxing one part of the body at a time. Everything is integrated, moves together. It's only tension that turns us into islands in our bodies and in our community, in our environment. Releasing through the wrist toward the hand. Remember that this movement here through the wrist, and again, I'll grasp this just so it's easy to see the movement. People tend to hold themselves and they pull this together. And this squishes in, if you can see it moving in toward my arm. And it is possible to release out so that the joint opens and all of this expands outward and gets longer rather than shortening in, lengthening out. So as you soften the wrist, soften it toward the hand. As you soften the elbow, soften it through the wrist toward the hand and toward whatever you're doing. The sense of lengthening outward with all of these movements. Even here, as we grasp, part of what we're doing is we're relieving this binding that tends to occur inward toward the elbow. So instead, we're softening this outward. Our joints have to open. Our tissues need to lengthen in order to transform. A reminder to soften your whole body, to be gentle. Try not to start bunching up around the movements, letting everything fall together open. Your mind is quiet, your breath is calm and comfortable. Being gentle, I know some of you have hand and finger pain, so I want you to not make anything worse. Don't exacerbate anything. Just soften and soothe. Slowly, things will transform. The classic statement is that everybody wants to change, but nobody wants to transform. We're looking now to become something different, to allow your tissues to function different, not just to change and maybe hurt less or be a little less tight, but instead we find a way for them to be different. Same thing as my hand floats up, the elbow sinks down, the shoulder blade sinks down. You get to go around the circle with this arm and down as best you can. Up the outside, down the inside for this one. following the channels. Settling everything down. Let your mind come to rest. Your body becomes still. A few breaths of meditation, allowing your awareness to come to rest beneath the palms, either in the navel or just between the navel and the spine. Good stuff. And just a reminder about the nature of the practice as we are letting our mind become quiet, because that is always important. When your mind wanders away, the habit is, I must focus, force my mind to come back. You hold your mind in place. That never works. It always leads to more tension, more disconcerting problems with the mind. Destabilizes your emotions, causes tension in the body, the whole deal. Instead, when your mind wanders away, release the distraction, release the agitation in your mind. And your mind will naturally settle back into the present moment because this is where we are. And you have this quiet intent of resting your awareness here. You don't have to push your mind. Pushing your mind, gripping your mind is bad for you. Stop it. Pulling down. This is just to allow everything to flow down toward the navel. Might feel very soothing during anxious times. This is something you might do to a little kid to help them calm. Just softening. You have the same intent and gentleness toward yourself. It's okay. And then warming the sternum. Softening these connecting points through here. So as you're doing this, if you find yourself closing and tightening your shoulders, you know that you're fighting your own process. Don't pull your shoulder blades back, but do allow your shoulders to soften outward toward the elbows. Your chest opens, not because you close your back, but because you let go of your chest. And again, as a reminder for humans with breast tissue, more breast tissue than I have, you can pause and take time to release and do any gentle breastwork massage that works well for your body type all the way around, especially if you find nodules or spaces that need a little bit of extra help circulating because it's easy for things to become clogged and stagnant. So please do take the time on your body to work the spaces that are necessary. I'm selfish, so I skip over them. But find how it works for you. Lots of bodies in this world. I hear the rain on the roof. It's one of the wonderful things about being in these very tiny little buildings. The rain and the snow and the ice just makes music. little bit lower, between the navel and the solar plexus, letting warmth and movement soak in, unless you've just eaten, in which case you might just have gentle circulation to help release, or just let the warmth of your hands soak in. When you're digesting, you just want to digest. Oh, feels nice. Now relieving that space just below the ribs. Generally moving forward, this helps to open the back. The tendency is for all of this to tighten up this way, so we're allowing things to soften under. Post lunchtime. Yeah, it's post lunchtime over here, post dinner time elsewhere. And so, in general, if you're eating and what your belly requires is space and comfort and warmth, a quiet mind, because this is a lot of the same energy, so you don't want to be having a vigorous conversation or an argument. It actually affects how we digest. And so usually silence and stillness is best. So if you've just eaten and your belly's full, if it's too full, then actually this can be great because it will help to disperse stagnation. If you've just eaten in that period of a short time afterward, while you're just initially digesting before things begin to move through your body, it can be best to not work this area. But since we spend the first half an hour or so working elsewhere, hopefully by the time we come here, you've digested, as long as you're not snacking while we're, rubbing the face and you're eating chips or something. And so you definitely just want to give your body space to digest. If you're having slow digestion because it's clogged, then these can be helpful because you're helping to introduce movement. But for instance, you wouldn't want to sit like this while you're eating because this compresses your entire digestive system and nothing is moving. And so in some ways this can be helpful, but in others it can be disturbing if you're just in the middle of doing something and what you really just need to do is be quiet with your digestion for a bit, then maybe that's the best. And maybe instead you could spend that time working on other parts of your body. So as long as you are tuned into your body, you can get a sense of when you're in the way versus when you're helping the flow through. Rubbing across the ribs if you haven't done it already. Oh, good. Trying to remember how to refer to someone in Glasgow. It's not Glasgowian, it's Glasgation or something, Glasgowation. Glasgowita. Softening through the ribs. Glasgow, Scotland, famous for their curry. I have to go try the curries. It is Glasgowasian. Glaswegian? Glaswegian. Oh, blowing my mind. Rubbing the navel. I'm getting a lot of help. Glasgow. Softening and warming your navel. Take your time. And again, some people have a lot more tissue here in their body, and it really requires more warming. Body fat in general, that doesn't, while it retains heat, it can itself be stagnant and cold. And so if you're having to warm a larger belly and it just feels cold all the time, please do take extra time to allow that warmth to soak into your body. Use a hot cup of tea or a hot pad. Keep this space warm and soft as much as you can. And if you happen to be pregnant, you can let me know how it feels to do this. If you're doing it on the outside and the child's doing it on the inside. Please do take your time to deeply warm the lower back. On the musculature next to the spine, emphasizing the downward direction. Pushing you down toward your feet. And again, just because today we're talking a lot about the shoulders, my elbows bend, my hands come up, but notice I'm not doing this. If anything, I'm doing this. My shoulder goes down as my hands come up. I don't know if that's showing very well on the camera. Soft and relaxed. You can also rub side to side if that feels more comfortable. Remember, you can use the backs of your hands if that's easier for you. Rubbing along the spine itself, the Mingmen opposite the navel, emphasizing a slight upward direction, but mostly in. Warmth soaks in, moving toward the navel, into that space in the center. This should feel good. If your arms feel tired, please stop. Don't practice tension. That's a bad habit. Let the softness and relaxation, the effortlessness, spread through your whole practice. Warming your tailbone as well. Eventually, you become so good at being effortless that that effortless quality begins to fill into the more amazing physical experiences. Making space for qi. Softening the tops of the glutes. Just where the glute muscles themselves attach to that pelvic crest, the iliac crest of the top. And then the center of the glute. Most people at some point or another have begged a friend or loved one to push or maybe drop their elbow into this little spot over here. In this case, we're just warming and soothing this area and helping it to release. And again, as we release the glutes, the back opens, the legs soften this direction. So even during this motion, the emphasis is upon this releasing of the legs, softening the sides of the thighs. Just effortless and comfortable. Keep your legs relaxed. Just above the knee on the outside. Softer with every rotation. Warmth soaking in, relieving this tendency for this muscle to grip and to bunch here above the knee. We're just letting that go. Inside of the legs. Just up near the knee, as well as the inner cheek of the thigh here. A little softer with each movement, a little more effortless and open. Space beneath the knee, and that popliteal crease behind the knee, between the tendons. And if you rub across the tendons a little bit as well, just lightly with your fingertips, as though plucking a guitar string so that it barely makes a noise, stimulating them just a bit. Stomach 36, here on this line just outside this bone here, and the belly of the muscle on the top. Warming that point. You can use your fingertips. You can use your palms if that's more comfortable. You can also stimulate that point inside at the same time if you like. Continuing to emphasize a downward and outward direction. This muscle, when it's tight, it pulls all of this together. This shortens inward. Your knee compresses down toward your foot. As this softens open from this release, there's this expansion toward the foot. So just like the relieving of the shoulders, every time you're softening one of these areas, you're not just softening that area. You want to feel how it reshapes your whole body. This way you're not in the way of the movement. The outside of the leg, gallbladder 34. All of my knee injuries from being ridiculous over a lifetime. This point in particular is very helpful. Gallbladder 34, worth looking up if you're not sure where it is. A meeting point of the sinews. Again, as you're doing this, please do allow your shoulder blades to stay in the back rather than rolling forward over the top. They soften down. So your back is still open and soft, your chest is open, and you simply move forward. And if you can, you flex from the hips a little bit to reach your knees. You don't round and tighten. You don't strain your neck. Avoid undoing all of the good work you just did. Emphasizing this movement toward the feet, releasing the channels, as well as warmth soaking into the knee itself. You want your kneecap to become toasty and warm. There's this fun translation of the Chinese. We talk about it in Buddhism as well, that this the mind as it sinks into the tissues of your body, that it feels like a nourishing fluid, mental water, like the water of life. And as your awareness soaks in with the heat from your hands, allow your awareness to begin to settle into the tissues of your body, not just on the surface. Maybe you can feel a little bit low, below the surface. We're aiming into that space between the muscle and the skin. But you might find yourself becoming aware of the bone, the ligaments and tendons, the fascial lines, these empty spaces. And that's okay. As your awareness penetrates into them, they fill and open, and it becomes something different. But if we're distracted, or our minds are tight, or we're really trying to do something hard, there's no space for that. So you instead quiet your body, quiet your breath, do as much as you can to quiet your mind, and you're just here with your experience. And the awareness sinks into the body like liquid into dry land. It takes a little bit of time, or like that dry sponge example I used earlier. You soak the dry sponge of your awareness into your body, and it starts to fill and soften. That's the good stuff. Raking your fingers up. From here, settling your thumbs, if you'd like, into that space in the center of the calf. Changshan, supporting mountain. Releasing all the way down the Achilles. Just as a reminder about the shoulders, depending on your posture and how you're going about this, don't do this. Soft, settling, hands are relaxed. With every movement, part of what you're practicing is this softening through your hands. You can learn to line your body up. This is what a lot of professional massage therapists are forced to learn, how to push through your fingers without compressing them, without causing damage to your joints. Instead, you're just softening, you're lengthening through your tissues to your fingertips, or whatever it is that you're using to release this tissue. Yeah, it's true, Chris. People tend to use their bodies incorrectly. Same with the mind. People use their minds incorrectly. I know not everybody here practices meditation or follows these other methods, but I can tell you with experience that it is possible to allow your mind to settle and become quiet, for your emotional suffering to ease, for your body to soften. It really is possible. And it happens because you get out of the way. Get out of the way. And so continually finding a new way to understand our body mind is so powerful. it's really worth taking the time to do it. But Chris is right. It's not a thing that people really explore these days. We've become better at everything else first. And Dell, you mentioned that you have a lot of elastin in your skin, and that's a condition. It's totally normal. It's perfectly fine. And it shouldn't impact this set too much unless it's causing you damage. I think it's just a thing that some people have. It can be cool at parties. Sunny side of the mountain. Not sure what you mean, Chris. Are you talking about the calf, the supporting mountain? Or are you talking about sun coming from behind me here? Nice and warm on the feet. Changing feet. Again, you can get to this point in your calf. You can fold your legs however is comfortable for you. You can also do it this way if this is easier. So I'll do it this way just so people can see what it looks like. But everyone's body, as we mentioned, is going to be different. Find the way to reach these spaces in the most effortless for you. Gallbladder 34, sunny side of the mountain. I don't think that's a translation that I've heard. There's a number of different names for the points depending on which province you're in and who decided to write the book. Most of the point names that I memorized were just the point numbers because that's the very United States style of learning. But there are some wonderful traditional poetic names. And within our Daoist systems that we study, all of the points have even separate names that I've been learning that hold different meaning to internal alchemy and meditation and different practices that we do. And for those of you who are interested in it, even in a cursory way, I highly recommend spending time studying traditional Chinese medicine. It really does change how you see the world. It's not just a system of points like a cookbook for treatment. It doesn't work that way. It's a map. It's a way of seeing the world. It's a way of seeing how things relate. That's what qi is. Qi isn't just, oh, it's this strange force or my blood flow or something like that. Qi as a term is fabulously flexible. I have a whole video about it for those of you that may have seen it. It's about relationship. It's how things relate. Everything in the world is movement and activity between things. And if you can come to understand how things interact and pattern and the shape of things, it changes everything, including how we practice medicine and how we study movement. Oh, I'm going to do it this way. We have a number of other Chinese doctors, Chinese medical doctors in our community. And I believe even Anna in our community here is another instructor. People have questions or they happen to be traveling in that part of the world. She also has some wonderful classes online worth looking up. So many fantastic people around. A lot of warmth, movement, sinking into the foot, traveling out toward the toes. Delicious. Nice and comfortable. Settled into your body. Full circles with your toes, with your knees, with your hips, moving that space that you're sitting on beneath, allowing the movement to release all the way up to your hips, your gua, right around the tailbone. Ah. Everything nice and soft. Let's do a little release of the legs this way. Down. I'll just go a little bit of the way down. Down the outside and back of the body. Up the inside and front. Avoid folding down on yourself. Avoid pulling with your thighs, trying to pull you forward. If you're not sure if you're doing it, place your hands on your thighs and release forward. And you might feel yourself holding your legs. Learn to let that go, so that as you cycle downward, there's a releasing and lengthening of your leg as you warm back toward the center. The same for your upper body. Don't allow your head and your chest to bunch down as though you're trying to pull yourself down toward your legs. Instead, lengthen. You're going this way. Recommendations. Yes, actually, ZhiCheng Shifu. I recommend everyone looking him up as well. He's a far better teacher than I am. He offers the suggestion as we go down to let your fingers walk outward and then come back. And so the movement is being led by your fingers, and you're sneaking up on your own legs. Because the way we're thinking about the movement is what's causing us to tighten up. So if you can instead be distracted elsewhere, your hands are walking their way down, and you may find yourself over here with less tension. You may also need to lift yourself higher. I'm not sure how you're sitting. If you're flat, or maybe you need to be a little bit higher this way, and that may also help by letting gravity fold you a little bit more than trying to pull yourself forward. This kind of clawing yourself forward thing. But he likes to do this. And then come up. And it was really helpful for me. That's when I realized, oh, I'm gripping here for no reason. Walk, 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 walk. Worth a try. This is what makes him such an amazing teacher, is that he's been doing this for longer than I've been alive. And I'm almost 50 here. I'm so old. And he's just figured out, oh, people have this problem. How do we get around it? And it could be something even as fun as this. So now let's do the kidney lengthening the kidney channel. Softening upward, falling down. I'll just fall a little bit of the way here. Raking upward, reaching out, grabbing with your feet and your hands. Not too tight. You're not trying to clench your feet in your hands. You're just closing them. Up, falling down. Raking up, grasping. Oh, yeah, it is cool. Yeah. It's all plagiarism. He's such a good teacher, but you know that. In every class, if I can convince at least one person to look him up, his skill level is off the charts. He's such a nice person. And he's just here. I took a class this morning. I was the only person in the room. Everybody else was online. And so I just got all of these personal corrections, and he's just so patient and kind. I feel really lucky to be here. It's not plagiarism when you reference the source, as recent news has taught us. You must cite your sources. Let this be easy and gentle. Find a way so that it's not a hardship. Being soft. Your body should just open. And if you find yourself pushing far, trying to get further, you have to relax that part of you. It's usually the mind, the ambitious part that wants to do more, to be more. That's something that's in your way. It's you getting in your own way. Find a way to relax that part of you and just be where you are. Oh, here I am. And that's fine. But I want more. That part of you that wants more, just let it soften. You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to convince it. You don't have to chastise it. You just get to be yourself. And part of that is a really foundational aspect of our practice. That part of us that needs, that craves, that wants, that aspect of desire, just let it soften. Don't let it rule you, because that's part of our gripping around our heart, and even the gripping in our thighs. We let it all fall. Shaking heaven's pillar. Yeah, Corey, I hadn't thought about that connection, about where you taught and where all this news is happening. How interesting. Softening through. Letting your body settle. So very gently, either pressing the teeth together if you're nervous about tooth pain or fragile dental work. If you can click your teeth together, go ahead and do that. Let's do it 18 times, perhaps. And then circle your teeth around the outside line where the gums are, around the teeth. Last time we did it 3 times. Maybe today we do it 5. If you start to feel strain or tension in your tongue, do fewer movements. 5 times in both directions, as well as inside the teeth at the gum line, 5 times in both directions. And then swallow the saliva down, follow it as though its path sinks down behind your navel. Allowing your awareness to settle through your whole body. If at this point you'd like to spend a few minutes lying flat on the ground, that can be very good for you. There isn't really space for me to do it here, so I'll just sit. You want your awareness to sink into your tissues like we were talking about. It's as though that mind fluid, that water, nourishes the sponge through your whole body. If you're lying down, feel free to wiggle your fingers and toes a bit, help some circulation move around. You can roll onto your side and back into a seated posture, allowing some extra awareness to come to rest in that space, in the navel or just behind, letting everything settle comfortably. One of the great gifts of cultivating this space in the center here, behind the navel and front of the spine. In this set, we call it the middle dantian, middle energetic center, we could say. Once that becomes cultivated, there's a stage where it fills and warms from practices like this, and it creates an anchor for the yang qi in your body, the movement, especially for the mind and the emotions. It makes it much easier to settle your mind and settle your emotions. When everything's floating and there's no anchor, it's easy to become anxious and for your mind to spin for no reason. But if you sink the qi down and cultivate this space, it takes some time, but it makes everything so much easier and more comfortable. You simply allow your awareness to sink, and your mind goes, whew, and your emotions go, whew, and your body goes, whew, exactly like that. If it doesn't make those noises, you're doing it wrong. Highly recommend it. And this is its own practice, settling and stilling. But everything that we're doing is creating the environment where this process of softening and settling and nourishing, enriching can happen. Very worthwhile as a practice. Take the time to meditate if you're not already. Even 5 minutes a day. You can start at 5 seconds. Thanks, Anna. I'm glad that you made it. We have a few minutes for questions. I can't stick around too long today. Too many things to do. Remember that all of these are available on the Patreon page, Patreon, the /John Blue page. They're all in there, and you can always save the link here right now. Just put it aside. I take them off the main YouTube so that because I'm using people's names and there's information here, I don't want them just circulating randomly in YouTube. But since you're here, if you just copy and paste this link, you can always watch it again later. I don't delete them or anything. And then I place them into Patreon for other people, a little safer environment to look at there. And of course, there's always a zillion other things there. I've been putting up a series on how to more easily remember the Taiji form, for instance, as using mnemonics and memory tools. And so feel free to find anything over there. All that stuff is free as well. And so I simply want to make it a little bit easier for people to practice. Gosh. Oh, Mags. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, fidgety and cold, warm and settled. That is a perfect shift. Thanks, Corey. Thanks for coming. I think that you're all wonderful. Remember that you can always email me questions. Audio format works best for me. With English, I'm a little bit dyslexic, unless you want to write it in Chinese for me. But if you just send me an audio file to my email, I'm happy to listen to it and send responses back when I get the chance. Or I can just address it in class here. But I'm going to head out, get some food for my Mel. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I love having you here. Enjoy your practice.